Have you noticed how easy it is to stay busy without ever feeling truly oriented? Have you felt moments where planning far ahead feels heavier than handling what's right in front of you? Do you ever sense a quiet resistance to thinking too far into the future, even when you know it matters? Have you observed how short-term wins feel clearer, while long-term direction feels harder to touch? Do you find yourself choosing momentum over clarity simply because movement feels safer than reflection? And have you wondered why thinking deeply about the future can feel uncomfortable in a way that action never does? Most men don't avoid long-term thinking because they lack ambition or discipline. They avoid it because it forces stillness, honesty, and a confrontation with uncertainty. Long-term vision removes the comfort of urgency and replaces it with responsibility, asking not just what am I doing, but where is this actually leading? Many men do not lack intelligence or ambition. What they avoid is distance, not physical distance, but temporal distance, the stretch of time where choices stop feeling reversible. Long-term thinking carries weight. It asks a man to imagine himself years ahead, shaped by decisions he has not yet made. For many, that image feels vague, even threatening, not because they are careless, but because clarity removes escape. In the short term, effort can be intense without consequence. Mistakes feel adjustable. Identity feels flexible. But when thinking extends far enough, something changes. Actions begin to harden into character. Habits begin to imply outcomes. And that is where avoidance often begins, quietly, without drama. Long-term thinking is not difficult because it is complex. It is difficult because it is binding. When a man thinks only in short ranges, he retains a sense of freedom. Today's choices feel provisional. Tomorrow can always correct them. This creates movement without commitment, motion without direction. Many men sense this tension internally. They can work hard, stay busy, even disciplined in bursts, yet something remains unsettled. Effort exists, but it is not anchored. Long-term thinking removes that ambiguity. It reveals continuity. What is repeated becomes formative. What is postponed does not disappear. It accumulates. This can feel uncomfortable, not because it demands perfection, but because it exposes patterns. A man begins to see not just what he wants, but what he consistently chooses, and those are not always aligned. Avoidance, then, is not laziness. It is often self-protection. To think long-term is to acknowledge trade-offs. Certain paths narrow as others strengthen. Some impulses lose justification when seen across years instead of days. There is also the issue of internal noise. Short-term thinking thrives on stimulation. It fragments attention just enough to prevent deeper reckoning. The mind stays occupied, but not oriented. Long-term thinking, by contrast, requires stillness. It requires sustained attention without immediate reward. For many men, this feels like standing still while the world moves. Not because it is passive, but because it lacks external validation. Another quiet resistance appears around identity. When time is extended, identity stabilizes. A man begins to sense who he is becoming, not just who he is trying to be. That can be clarifying or confronting. It is easier to remain undefined. Undefined effort feels safer than defined direction, because definition introduces consequence. So avoidance persists, not as a conscious choice, but as a subtle preference for immediacy. The present feels manageable. The future feels demanding. Over time, this avoidance shapes more than plans. It shapes self-perception. A man who does not engage with long horizons often measures himself by intensity rather than coherence. How hard he worked, how much he endured, how busy he stayed. But intensity alone does not produce stability. Without direction, effort disperses. The body moves forward, but the inner sense of progress remains uncertain. Long-term thinking does something quieter. It organizes pressure. It allows effort to stack instead of scatter, not by forcing control, but by reducing contradiction. This has little to do with rigid planning. It is more about internal alignment. When actions point in roughly the same direction over time, a man feels less fractured. Decisions carry less friction. Regret loses some of its edge. Avoiding long-term thinking delays this integration. Life continues, but it feels episodic. Moments do not build, they reset. Self-mastery, in this sense, is not about domination of desire. It is about continuity, the ability to remain in conversation with one's future self, not dramatically, but consistently. Many men already know this intuitively. They notice calm emerging when their days reflect something durable. When effort serves a longer arc, even quietly, the resistance was never about capacity. It was about willingness to see clearly. Long-term thinking does not promise certainty. It offers responsibility. It asks a man to recognize that time is not neutral. It responds to repetition. It rewards coherence more than intensity. Avoidance feels lighter in the moment, but it often carries a hidden cost, a sense of drifting while moving. To think long-term is not to predict the future. It is to stop pretending that choices dissolve overnight. When a man allows his attention to stretch forward, something steadies, not because everything becomes clear, but because effort gains direction, and direction, even imperfect, tends to quiet the noise.